Hello, everybody. So as you may know, I like Cloudflare. I think it's a very interesting company. Yesterday, I listened to the whole conference call, and I am all fired up about this stock. I think this company has a lot of potential. The company delivered great Q4 2022 earnings and really a great 2022 now that we have a full results for the year. And I wanted to share with you kind of the takeaways that I have for this company, what are my expectations for the long term, and really provide an update compared to my prior Cloudflare video that I did about 3 months ago. So let's go. So Cloudflare, what is Cloudflare? What does Cloudflare do? Well, Cloudflare wants to become the main gateway to the internet. And by becoming the main gateway to the internet, the main cloud access to the internet, they aim to make every connection secure, private, and fast and reliable. And you may ask, what does Cloudflare do? Cloudflare is pretty new. It's an 11-year-old product, but really it started gaining prominence really like in the late 2010s. So it's a fairly new product. What do they do? What is Cloudflare in a nutshell? What is the main business of Cloudflare? Well, they're a DNS proxy. Or at least that's how they started, and now they rolled out many more services, but they serve as a proxy to access website. So this is kind of the same as a VPN for website, as you would have a VPN on your computer. Well, Cloudflare kind of does that for websites. So the traditional historic way of connecting to a website connection application of any kind is you have a visitor, right? The visitor on the website, and you connect direct to the server. And Cloudflare does it differently. You're the visitor, and if the website, the origin server, uses Cloudflare, as the visitor, you only connect to Cloudflare and to the network of computers of Cloudflare. And so what that does is that while in the traditional way, in this setup, right, visitor connects to a website, you've disclosed your home address. You've disclosed your IP. And if you disclose your IP, and if you're not an expert in cybersecurity, you're going to be exposed to potential attackers, right? You're going to be exposed to DDoS attack, which is when websites get taken down, sometimes by very, very large organizations, when websites crash and stop working. You're going to have this problem because you're making your origin server visible by every potential attacker, right? Every potential attacker sees that. A bit like if you were to disclose your home address in real life, right? But the Cloudflare way is different. With Cloudflare, which the first offering was security, all about security. With Cloudflare, you used what they use, a proxied DNS. They call this a proxied DNS, which is kind of like a Cloudflare PO box. That edge, right? That's all you see as the visitor. You don't see the origin server. So the IP is hidden, right? And potential attackers, if they want to attack your company, right, which is at the origin server, if they want to attack your company, well, they can't really do that because first they don't know where it is. But then if they know where it is, if they want to know where it is, they have to break the Cloudflare edge, which they can't because Cloudflare has been working on this forever. And they have a dynamic array of tricks, techniques, firewalls, redirections, tactics to deal with potential hackers, attackers, threats of any kind. So Cloudflare makes it so much more difficult for a company to get hacked because it has an added layer of security, which is the Cloudflare edge. Your origin server is protected when you use Cloudflare, just like your home address is protected if you use a PO box. I think that is the best analogy to think about when we look at Cloudflare. And having this setup, this global platform, this global network of servers that act as intermediaries, having this setup creates other advantages. Another big advantage is performance. So if you have a heavy website that says, has a lot of pictures, or a lot of script that needs to be preloaded, thanks to the Cloudflare Edge, Cloudflare can preload a lot of the contents of your application or website, can preload it on Cloudflare. That way it makes the connection much faster, because Cloudflare is likely to be, a Cloudflare server is likely to be very, very close to you regardless of where the origin server is. So Cloudflare does a lot of caching at the edge close to your location and speeds up the website. So it increases performance of a bunch of different websites, which is why 30% of Fortune 500 companies use Cloudflare. And the last thing that Cloudflare does is it increases reliability of your network. Because in the traditional system, which is what the traditional way of service has become, unicast, in a unicast system, when you have a terminal, your laptop, and you connect to a website or to an app in the cloud, you connect directly to the server, right? And that can be congested, that can be slow, as well. So it removes slowness. Cloudflare really works on this slowness by having their Anycast system, which is their system which allows a client to connect to multiple servers at the same time to get access to that app or that application, which is then linked back to the origin server. So there's really 4 key advantages to using Cloudflare. It started out with cybersecurity, but now it's moved towards overall performance, speed, and reliability of networks. And that is all so essential for the modern internet, because with the modern internet, things are just getting heavier and heavier. Apps are getting more and more demanding, streaming in 4K, websites with more and more queries and requests. They are really living with the modern times of the internet. That's why I say it's internet infrastructure as a service is what Cloudflare provides. And this is the network that they've built, and the CEO talks about this in the conference call. They've been the first mover in this space. And so you have a lot of people that are very impressed with what Cloudflare has built, because they directly connect to Cloudflare, to different ISPs, cloud providers, large enterprises. They've built a giant network of 11,500 nodes or connections. They have 275 cities, very, very large speeds, lots of customers. 95% of our population is within 50 milliseconds of a Cloudflare data center. And as things like the Internet of Things, for example, are going to keep getting better, this is getting more and more important. Speed and reliability of the internet is getting more and more important. And Cloudflare was really the first mover in this space. And when I look at Cloudflare, and I compare Cloudflare to its main competitor, which is Fastly, Fastly does not really brag about its network of 79 cities. In fact, I had to count how many cities Fastly has, right? It's a much smaller network than Cloudflare, and it's the main competitor. Fastly claims that its network points are higher density, but you know what? If I was not the leader, I would claim that too. I would say, hey, well, look, I really don't have the network of Cloudflare. I can't match it, but look, I'm better. I have better engineers, which is, in a nutshell, what Fastly claims. Right? And I would also assume that as technology evolves, both competitors are going to get the top, right? The best-in-class technologies. These servers get updated, these networks get updated, and so if both have the best-in-class technology, then the only thing that matters are going to be the laws of physics. And the laws of physics dictate that distance matters, right? You can't really go faster than the speed of light between two nodes, right? The speed of light is kind of a limitation. So distance matters. Distance from the user will always matter at a fundamental level. And I think the market caught on that, because Fastly stock, has not really rebounded, and it's $1.2 billion market cap. Cloudflare is $19.2 billion market cap, so almost a 20x bigger for Cloudflare. So, Cloudflare really has a grand long-term vision that I think is not realized by a lot of people, and they really want to be a standalone infrastructure as a service system, except unlike infrastructure as a service, for example, in the storage and compute world, where you have clearly competition. I mean, mostly Microsoft, Amazon, and GCP are the three main competitors in in the compute and storage space of infrastructure as a service, Cloudflare is really setting itself to be without competition. I mean, we discussed Fastly, and it's up to you to decide whether Fastly is full competition. And you have different parts and different products that Cloudflare offers, where you might find XYZ competitor for a teeny tiny segment of Cloudflare. But if you want a fully integrated solution, a single network, it seems to me like Cloudflare is very, very unique, and it's going to be able to add more and more services and offers to its network. And their vision is really a grand vision of being the main, perhaps monopolistic cloud infrastructure for the internet, which I think is a fascinating vision, and the total addressable market of Cloudflare could really be huge. So let me go more about Cloudflare. So the CEO addressed that in the earnings call, and also in the presentation. So if you look at their presentation, really, I would give them credit for, these documents are kind of marketing documents for the firm. So I would give them credit for two competitive advantages: the scale, right? The network scale gives them a better product at a lower cost, which then you can argue translates to a kind of a blue ocean type of product, which has better usability, a more premium product if you want. But that's business strategy here. That's not competitive advantage, these two things. That is competitive advantage when you have network scale, because you have lower costs. And then network effects, what they call shared intelligence, is that yes, because they have all of these attacks, all of these learning advantages from different setup, they can use their machine learning, their AI, to provide better and better products. A little bit like CrowdStrike does in endpoint security. The more data they get, the more they learn, the more they improve the products. So I would really put the network effects related to learning and the scale as two key competitive advantages. But the CEO really does a better job explaining in the call what makes them so advantageous compared to the competition. And he outlines in the call that it's really history and perhaps luck that has made it so that they can have this competitive position where they've been able to build a network that took them 12 years to build, a network that is agnostic in the sense that you, as an enterprise, you don't want to be locked in with a single provider or with the services that AWS or GCP offers to you. You want to have multiple options, and Cloudflare really becomes this neutral provider. And the CEO keeps emphasizing in the call the value of a single network, right? The fact that you have a single scaled network reduces cost for services as they roll them out. He gives an example, right? With Zero Trust Services, they recently launched Zero Trust Services, and they were able to provide a better quality service. Well, according to them, right? These are often marketing documents, right? They're trying to sell the stock to analysts. So, they were able to provide a better service than Zscaler. And he kind of went after Zscaler, the CEO, and said, Zscaler runs multiple independent networks for different services that they have. There are multiple independent networks because Zscaler has been growing through a segmented way. They've been growing through siloed acquisitions, right? Add-ons. So you end up having some businesses that are single pane of glass, fully cohesive, fully agile, and you have businesses that are more like steam engines, that are like more complicated, more bulky, less agile. And the CEO really, I think, made a good point here. And he noted that the single network, which is why they're so adamant about having a single network, that single network allows them to deploy new services incredibly quickly. So whatever innovation comes in the internet space, it may be safe to assume that Cloudflare is going to have it. And so that's very important when you're when you're a long-term oriented customer of Cloudflare, because you want to adopt one solution and done, and you want it to be easy for you, and you also want it to be the best. The CEO is also very confident about the long-term future and very long-term oriented. In fact, he reiterated guidance for $5 billion revenue run rate 5 years from last quarter, so in November 2027. We'll see what that means for long-term growth. So let's see that network. This is the network again that I wanted to show. But let's see those services, right? They're growing and adding services all the time. So now they have Cloudflare application services, right? If you want to run cloud apps, they have Cloudflare network services, right? If you want to protect your website. And now they have a Cloudflare Zero Trust services and a Cloudflare for Teams. And the CEO went on about how they integrated some big companies with their Teams suite and their kind of seat-based SaaS. So if you look at a chart, they're adding products. And that is part of their roadmap of always adding products to that single integrated global cloud platform. They are adding products on a constant basis. And this is what they say in their investor presentation. As a conclusion, as a reason for our scale, for our products, for everything we do, we operate now at this massive scale, and 136 billion threats blocked against websites and apps, right? 162,000 enterprise paying customers. They're almost fully diversified within the US and outside the US, right? Most of the revenue comes from very large customers. These are the best customers to have. They're likely to spend more each year. And moving on to the full year 2022, right? They estimate their TAM at 125 billion. In 2023, so they don't need to capture a lot of that to grow very fast. 49% revenue year over year, 76% gross margin, 2,000 large customers. And if you look at the numbers, this company continues to deliver really, really, really strong growth, right? 49% since 2017. That has been very high. Strong dollar net-based SDBNR, as they call it, has been very, very high. And there's been a little drop in SDBNR, but if you compare that drop to all of the other SaaS companies, you realize that drop is really not that much given the macro. What's happening is SDBNR has been dropping for a lot of SaaS companies because IT now, whenever there's an IT purchase, they require more approval from up top because of the macro environment. So that's kind of what happens. But 22% over 100% in SDBNR is really, really nothing to sneeze at. This is yet again an example that these as-a-service business models are really superior business models for the 21st century. They are a superior way of running a business, and that's why so many of the stocks I cover follow that as-a-service business model. Definitely my favorite type of business model. Again, they've been doing a lot of progress on their operating expenses, right? Well, our R&D I don't like to see down too much, but it's not down as much. But sales and administration, general administration is down. Sales and marketing is down. They've guided this to get down even more and more down. And actually, RD&D may become more down now that coders are more efficient. Software and code is really easier and easier to do. Really improving their margins here. And this is also very important to us because in my channel, I focus on very high growth stocks. But my main criteria before I even select an high growth stock is, are they going to go bankrupt, right? Because so many companies are threatened sometimes. This company is now well into a free cash flow positive company. They have positive free cash flow, and they have some debt. And that would be normally not that not that good of a thing. But when you look at the capital structure, most of the debt matures in 2026, which means that they'll likely roll it over when the interest rate environment is lower. That's kind of my big thesis, that the rates are going to go down, and they have more cash than debt. So they have a net cash position of 80 million. So you have a net cash position of 80 million, and you're cash flowing just about 80 million. So this is a company that is not at risk of bankruptcy. They've escaped that phase of their growth, and they're now in fully growth mode. And let me conclude. So I'll conclude with the guidance. They've given a guidance, and that's for the past 2 months, of like 37% or 38%. And that's the second time that they repeat this guidance. And keep in mind, they were growing at 50% with a former macro environment. And when you listen to the call, and I've been listening to the calls for a while, there's been a clear shift in the CEO. The CEO is now providing the most, the toughest, most conservative, heavily sandbagged guidance, so much so that the analysts on the calls are confused. The analysts on the calls are like, well, did you take this into account? Did you take that into account? Telling to the CEO all of the positives and saying, did you incorporate those positives in the guidance? And the CEO is like, no, I did not incorporate any of these positives in the guidance. So the guidance given by the CEO has been very, very, very conservative, and he's lowered it. Last quarter, he lowered it. Last quarter, he said, okay, well, given macro, given everything that happens, we see now $5 billion in sales run rate by Q3 of 2027. And so I calculated it. Right, so we just received Q4 of 2022. This is a real number, and these would be estimates of revenue until Q3 2027. So that's the guide. That's what the company have guided. That's the heavily sandbagged guide for the CEO, and that would be 8.3% per quarter or 38% per year CAGR that they've guided over the next 5 years. That's very conservative guidance compared to what this company's potential is. Remember, they have a monopolistic position in the cloud-based access to the internet. So I would argue this is a very conservative guidance. But even with this conservative 5-year guidance, which, by the way, I love to have five-year guidance from CEO. I really, really love that. Makes investing a much more fun thing, right? It makes investing less uncertain because now you have a CEO who's like giving you a long-term objective that you can use in your calculation. And so when I use it in my calculation, assuming that the current horrible macro environment and the valuation, because the valuation of Cloudflare relative to what it's been in the past is not good right now because the macro hates growth. So assuming we have that same awful macro valuation in 2027, which I don't think we will, but assuming we do, and we assume that Cloudflare is still valued at 20 times gross profit, and then we take those numbers, right? So Q3 of 2027, you would have a $5 billion in sales run rate company, right? Going forward after Q3, it would be $5 billion in sales multiplied by your gross margin of 77%, multiplied by 20 times gross margin. If I just do this back of a napkin calculation, that would be a $77 billion market cap stock in Q3 of 2027. Current market cap is $19 billion, so that is over 4 times your money in 4.75 years. Is kind of what my back of a napkin calculation says, knowing that I believe that this is heavily sandbagged. And in 2027, the big question that you ask yourself is, will they still be growing at 37%? What is the mega trend? And the mega trend of connectivity, the mega trend of the internet, the penetration of the internet, I would argue, is about halfway through 100%. Not in access, but in usage. Internet usage is only going to grow within the next 10 years. Devices are going to need access to the internet. Employees are going remote. Zero trust is going to grow. The internet is a mega trend. So you have to wonder what these companies will be valued. And by the way, they will be very profitable in 2027. So you'll be able to use a PE to value this company. So in conclusion, this is not investment advice, but I am very positive about the future of this company. I really recommend you listen to the conference call. It was an awesome conference call. Thank you so much for watching. This was just entertainment, no investment advice. Please like, please subscribe, and follow me on Twitter if you can. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.